Private members' business. Private members' business item number 903, standing in the name of Mr Borsak, relating to the no body, no parole laws.
The Honourable Robert Borsak.
Thank you, Mr Assistant President. I move private members' business item number 903, standing in my name. The tragic tale of Lynette Simms' disappearance and the subsequent legal proceedings have unfolded before us, painting a picture of heartbreak, injustice and the enduring quest for the truth. Lynette was not merely a statistic. She was a daughter, a wife, a mother and a sister. She was and is much loved, and her absence has left a void that time can never fill. After Lynn Simms' 1982 disappearance, her husband Chris Dawson's actions came under scrutiny. Despite two inquests in 2001 and 2003 suggesting foul play, no charges were filed. In 2018, investigations reignited with the establishment of Strike Force Scriven and media attention from the Teacher's Pet podcast. Chris Dawson's December 2021 arrest led to a prolonged legal battle, with charges formally laid in April 2022. His trial, highlighting the allegations of abuse and infidelity, concluded in August 2023, with Dawson being found guilty of Lynette Simms' murder. He was sentenced to a maximum of 24 years, with a non-parole period of 18 years on December 2nd, 2023. Following the trial, questions regarding the circumstances of Lynette Simms' murder and the current whereabouts of her body remain unanswered. The Dawson case inspired a public push for law reform in New South Wales, seeking a way to enforce the truthful disclosure of a victim's remains from a convicted homicide offender. A petition called for no body, no parole law to be passed in New South Wales, as it has been in other states and territories. It gained enormous public support, earning over 30,000 signatures. The law was proposed and subsequently passed through the State Parliament on the 13th of October 2022 as an amendment to the Crimes Administration and Sentences Act 1999 under Section 135A. It requires that, and I quote, parole order must not be made where the offender has not cooperated in locating the victim's body or remains. The passage of Lynn's Law is not merely a symbolic gesture, it is a beacon of hope for countless families who have endured similar agonies. It stands as a testament to our commitment to justice, to our determination to ensure that victims and their loved ones are not forgotten in the annals of legal history. As we reflect on the significance of this motion, let us not forget the words of Lynette's brother Greg Simms, who spoke of the profound impact of her absence on their family. We must also remember the anguish of Lynn's parents, Helena and Len Simms, and Lynn's brother Philip, who passed away without ever knowing the truth about their daughter and sister's fate. In commemorating Lynette Simms through Lynn's Law, we honour her memory and the memories of all those who have suffered similar fates. We affirm our commitment to justice, to compassion and to the pursuit of truth, even in the face of overwhelming adversity.
Further speakers? The Honourable Susan Carter.
This motion calls for Section 135A of the Crimes Administration of Sentences Act, introduced by the Crimes Administration of Sentences Amendment No Body No Parole Act of 2022, number 43 of 2022, to be recognised simply as Lynn's Law, in memory of Lynette Dawson, née Simms. It is a call that we are happy to support. We call legislation by recognisable names for several reasons. The first is that it helps us to know and understand what that law is, fundamentally important if we want to preserve the rule of law. In the same way that Act 43 of 2022 means nothing to anyone other than legal scholars, So most of us have no understanding of what is meant by Victoria 63 and 64, Chapter 12. But we understand exactly what that is when we call it by its unofficial but perfectly understandable name, the Australian Constitution. Similarly, it makes sense to call Act Number 43 of 2022 Lynn's Law. We also name legislation to remember and to memorialise. Jack Beasley was only 17 when he was stabbed to death because his assailant had an undetected knife. His life is remembered in Jack's Law, Queensland legislation, which we may soon also see in New South Wales. And we name legislation to respect. Archaeologists use respect for the dead and ritual burial practices as important markers of civilisation. We all agree that the dead should be respected in death as they were in life, and their bodies treated properly. We build memorials so that we can remember the life that was shared with us, and so we have a place to mourn. This is one of the reasons why the no body, no parole law is important. It says to convicted murderers that we want to rehabilitate you, we want to welcome you back into society, but social obligations are reciprocal and they are founded on mutual respect. You cannot restore the life you have taken, but you can provide some comfort to the family by giving them a body to bury. You can demonstrate your respect for life by providing that the life you have taken will be respected in death. And that if you are not willing to offer comfort for families and respect for the dead, this is a good marker that you are unlikely to be able to fulfil the reciprocity on which all of our social obligations are built. And so you should remain excluded from society until you can demonstrate your capacity to live as a member of our community. Lynette Dawson's family have no body to bury. They have no grave at which they can mourn. They have nothing of her to memorialise. Let this renaming be her memorial, and together let us all place our hands on what should be the foundation stone of Lynn's Law, the only memorial we are currently able to offer for her life.
Further speakers? The Minister.
Thank you. The government supports this motion and take the opportunity to again send our condolences to the family for a life lost, but for a very long fight for justice, but still the very unsatisfying and upsetting result of not being able to have the body of their much loved family person, Lynette Simms, to be able to bury her and to be able to memorialise her. And I acknowledge the words of the Honourable Susan Carter in relation to this. I do think it's important to understand the way in which the practice in New South Wales for legislation is about the way that we name legislation, and that is that we don't name legislation after individuals. However, there's been a growing practice over time for us in passing these bills and to informally talking about these bills, about naming them in the context they are, and that's with which the reason why we're very happy to support this amendment today. The practice has been to informally refer to legislation after individual victims in the media and in the second reading speeches, so that the reasons why these changes in the law come before the House are put in the context of which they are, and why the Parliament at various times has made decisions to make changes as a result of those things. In the previous Parliament, we passed the Crimes Administration of Sentences Amendment No Body, No Parole Bill. It's important to understand that that's part of an amendment to the Crimes Administration of Sentencing Act. It is technical and it can be challenging to find. But the point that we want to make today is that, yes, we support this motion. The idea of talking about Lynn's Law as a result of no body, no parole is something that the community understands, and it's something that we join with them in relation to what has driven this change in the law that we have agreed to. It is the case now in New South Wales that the law requires the State Parole Authority to seek the advice from police about whether an offender has cooperated with efforts to locate the remains of a victim. And where an offender has refused to cooperate, their parole must be declined. We hope that that gives some comfort to those who are still waiting to bring their person home, and to be able to bury them in an appropriate way.
Further speakers, Ms Sue Higginson.
Mr Deputy Assistant President, I rise on behalf of the Greens to indicate that we don't support this motion from the shooters. I acknowledge deeply the deep hurt and suffering that is experienced by the loved ones when the body of a victim of homicide goes missing or is unable to be recovered. The pain would be unimaginable, and our opposition to this motion does not lessen our empathy or compassion for people experiencing this grief. The motion itself recognises the murder of Lynette Joy Dawson as the catalyst for the no body, no parole laws, but it is distinctly lacking in evidence that these laws have encouraged people imprisoned for murder to come forward about the whereabouts of people that have gone missing, died in unknown circumstances or murdered. When these laws were introduced, it was our position, a position that was consistent with the views of criminology experts, that these laws are unlikely to result in the discovery of bodies of people that have not been discovered. To the substance of the motion, there is actually a really good reason why legislation is not given the names that do not describe the intent of the law. Legislation should be clear, immediately identifiable and precise, and this extends to its name. The name Lynn's Law will not bring back Lynette Dawson, but it will forever inscribe a single tragic murder over all the others where the body of the victim has not been recovered. If all legislation where there was an element like this was to be named for particular people, the laws of New South Wales would be filled with the names that are not reflective of the content of the law, and a great many crimes would be tacitly ignored by naming schemes. The impact of the no body, no parole laws, beyond failing to incentivise any person to produce the location of a body, have had a serious impact on people that might have been wrongly imprisoned. And I am particularly considerate right now of the case of Kelly Lane, a woman who is stuck in prison for murder and who has consistently maintained her innocence. She's assisted with police inquiries, but she cannot be released from prison. The Supreme Court Justice who presided over Ms Lane's case has even been on the record saying the no body, no parole laws shouldn't be applied willy-nilly to everybody who's been convicted of a murder charge. These laws were not passed in the best interest of our legal system, nor in the interests of the principles of justice. To canonise these laws in line with the experiences of a tragically aggrieved group of people will diminish the experiences of all people impacted by laws that should never have been passed in the first place. On this basis, we can't support, and as I say, this does nothing to diminish our empathy or our compassion for the family of the loss and who are suffering.
Further speakers? There being no further speakers, the honourable member in reply.
Thank you, Mr Assistant President. Look, I really appreciate the contribution from the Honourable Susan Carter. Thank you very much, Susan. The Leader of the Government in this place, the Honourable Penny Sharp. I don't thank Sue Higginson for her contribution. As usual, it's a typical cold-hearted, who gives a stuff about anybody approach from the Greens. The reality is, how could you possibly have a result in relation to the changes to the law that only went through in June 2023? Obviously, the Greens, as usual, don't do their homework. Yeah, this is an important motion. It's the best we're going to get in this place, given that bills are not named, and contrary to what Ms Higginson was saying, this motion does not seek to have that happen, knowing full well that it just isn't going to happen. No one's looking to populate our laws with various names, but names like Lynn's Law, Jack's Law, etc., bring immediately to mind what they're trying to achieve in the minds of the legislatures and also in the minds of the public. It's very, very important that these, if you like, tags or short names focus in on the actual injustices that are occurring, because the law is full of injustice. Even though we like to think that it is justice, it's not always the case. So on that, I'd like to close, and I commend the motion to the House.